always appreciate the warm welcome I received when I returned home from naval service in 2018. There were meals, handshakes, a lot of kind words, and one very interesting gift from my great-uncle Gene Ramsey. A nondescript cardboard shoebox filled with keepsakes from his father's, my great-grandfather's, own naval service during World War II. At the bottom of this box was a map of the Pacific Ocean my great-grandfather, a boy who'd likely never crossed the Wabash River out of Indiana, used to track his voyages to participate in the Pacific theater of the Second World War on board the USS Sanborn. Pen marks on the map led me on my great-grandfather's journey across the world in his own boyish handwriting, preserved now nearly 80 years. A 1945 record of the ship's activity documents Ishmael Ramsey's unit spending only a few months getting their sea legs and testing the vessel off the coast of California before journeying into and beyond Allied waters with a heading for Iwo Jima. The Sanborn arrived the night before the now infamous invasion, providing continuous amphibious support for the duration of the battle. After the hard-fought victory at Iwo Jima, the Sanborn drove deeper out of safety, participating in the Battle of Okinawa, where it nearly missed 2 suicide plane attacks. After the Japanese surrender, the ship returned to the States, filled with homesick service members. I made a high-resolution scan of the map and had a reproduction made to share it with my great-uncle Gene, who'd entrusted it to my care. This is his first time seeing it.
He signed up in 42. He was second-class petty officer. He worked in the tailor shop here, sewing uniforms and all that, ship service. He got out of the Navy after the war was over, and he come to Vincennes train station and got off there, and the first thing he done was grab me, and I was in a little sailor uniform, all white, with a cap and everything. He just grabbed me right off first. He sent him, raised the flag on Iwo Jima. He'd seen that in the deck. He was up on deck, and they could see it with binoculars. He saw it firsthand. They was anchored out there.
How old were you when you enlisted?
17.
Was that legal at the time, or did you have to lie?
Mom and Dad had to sign for me.
Did they have any problem with you joining?
No.
My great-uncles Gene and Robert followed in great-grandpa Ishmael's footsteps, enlisting as sailors in the 1950s, and their other brother, my grandfather Doug Ramsey, also served in the U.S. National Guard.
I worked in a tailor shop once, a soda fountain for 2 or 3 months, down the laundry mostly. And we had ship stores, like we could buy watches and cigarettes and all that stuff. We took care of that. I got out August of 1960. Been to Cuba 2 or 3 times, get my bay down there at Port-au-Prince. That's another island, Cuba. I've probably been in the Mediterranean 7 or 8, And then we went down south later, and I got my Neptune and across the equator.
Do you remember much about your shellback ceremony when you crossed the equator? Did you have a big ceremony?
Said we had to keep going across the equator. They had a guy on the ship dressed up like Neptune, his big old fat belly.
Yeah.
Said you had to go up there and kiss his belly.
Yeah, you guys didn't do that?
No.
Oh, you missed out, man.
No.
Your brother was also in the Navy.
Yeah, older brother.
Bob.
Ramsey. Robert Ramsey. He was up a destroyer out of San Diego. He finally fell down a cargo hold and hurt his back, and he got out after 2 years.
I suppose in making this project, it occurred to me how telling my great-grandfather's story and his son's stories, the stories of boys who went to ask the Navy recruiter if he could get them out of the cornfields of Indiana, I was also kind of telling my story too. By the measure of a coincidence I still have trouble believing, I was deployed to Japan with a shipmate, Cameron Graber, who's also from Davies County. I asked him to say a few words about our service together as nuclear reactor operators on board the aircraft carrier USS Ronald Reagan.
I do always like telling people the story of how we met when we were on the ship.
Please share it to me from your perspective.
You come up behind me, like tap me on the shoulder, and I'm like, hey man, what's up? I was like, are you from Davies County, Indiana? To be sitting in on the bottom of a metal bucket in San Diego, California, and have somebody like, hey, so tell me about Davies County, Indiana. Like, no one knows what that is.
I had picked up on your accent, and I'm pretty sure you were talking about basketball. And then, and I read your name tag said Graber, and I'm like, no, that's too many coincidences. This a Davies County boy. How would you describe what a nuclear reactor operator does on an aircraft carrier? Like, what did we do?
If you want to get snarky, I flip some switches and keep a green bar below the green line.
Yeah.
That's always a good way to
That's an interesting way to put it. To me, I always say that it was really exciting because you're sort of like using your ingenuity and the hour of sleep that you had, right, to the best of your ability to like keep the ship moving through the water against like whatever the issues of the day or the week are. And so, you know what I mean? It's just like that. I've been awake for 3 days and I've got to figure out how to fix this thing and just a constant nonstop flow of that. So, but what was your takeaway? Like, what was the experience of it like for you?
I loved the whole operation aspect of it. The people we worked with were the best of the best, like most of them. You always had people around that were some of the most competent, intelligent, hardworking people. Because that's what is kind of required of you in this role.
I did want to have a chance to tell like one bragging on you story, and it is about the way you sort of inserted yourself into, I think we're maybe telling the same story, into a situation to be helpful, to recover from a big casualty, when other people were, I'm sure, having the tendency or the temptation to run sort of out of the situation, right? And Cameron Graber is the guy who got in there.
We had a lot of high-level people in there, and I was having a loud argument with them about 1 decade per minute. Close enough. And he's like, and they're like, about one. It's about one.
Yeah.
So I always had
5 is about 1.
put in that spot.
I think an anecdote that I tell a lot about sort of, I don't know, Hoosiers or Midwesterners in the Navy is that when they shipped us off to boot camp, I don't know if you recall this, but they make you go through like this hell thing, like 3 days without sleep. They put us in this room, which is basically like a big warehouse, and we're building sea bags for the next group to show up. And running around getting like the soap and the socks and the whatever the heck you need to get through boot camp and building these sea bags out. And so we're like probably 48 hours without sleep at this point, and people are starting to fall off, and people are like, I've had enough. The Navy's not for me. I quit, and people are getting sick. And I don't know, at some point I'm looking around this like warehouse situation because I've just had my head down working, and there's only 3 people left in the whole room. And it's the 3 people that showed up in my van with me from Indiana. I'll always remember, right, the Indiana people being the last people left standing, stocking the sea bags at boot camp. I'll always remember Cameron Graber being the guy that ran into the reactor plant when everyone else was running out.
You gotta be a little weird to like want to do it. I think like you have to have. I don't know if arrogance is the right word, but if
you said arrogance, I wouldn't disagree with you.
You have to if you know what you're getting into or have an idea of what you're getting into. You're like, yeah, I'll do that. You have to have some arrogance or confidence, however you want to describe it.
If I'm honest, I only had a vague awareness of my family's naval heritage when I enlisted, which has made this voyage of discovery all the more fascinating and exciting. And if I had a motivation in putting this together, it's to make sure I've done some part to pass this information on, to push the ship a little further through its passage,
and they ride it on the blue line,
and steward it to the next destination. To those who have gone before, fair winds and following seas.